So this is the fourth one, I think. Yeah, number 4, smoking. This isn't to tell anyone to stop smoking. Anyone who smokes knows now how bad it is for you. And I am also very acutely aware of how hard it is not to smoke if you have smoked for quite a while, because I've gone through all that. So again, I'm not here to discuss means or ways of stopping smoking or anything. You know it's bad for you, but this is an extra indicator maybe that a couple of things about smoking, interesting facts, might help you just fall over the other side of the fence into the non-smoking garden. It might just prick your conscience, even if you've got children, that sort of thing. So let's get started. So what we're talking about in the cigarette smoke is not necessarily the nicotine or anything like that, but the actual toxins that are in the smoke itself. So what they do is instantly you pull on the cigarette, it instantly inflames your cells in your blood through your lungs and things like that. So it generally puts stress virtually everywhere around your body, and you can feel it virtually instantly. That's why people get this kick from it. Some people think of it as a relaxing thing. Some people, if they're stressed, I'll give them a cigarette. Like the first drag of the cigarette, you think, oh, great, there's this relaxing thing on it, but it's actually, what it's doing is it's stressing all your blood cells, and they go into a sort of a shock, like they don't know what to do, like, and that's where you get that euphoria sort of initial feeling of everything's cool and calm, like, Smoking mainly has been associated with Alzheimer's disease, which is factually, I suppose, the worst dementia you can get out of a bad lot anyway. So I don't have Alzheimer's, even though I smoked, so it's quite odd I got the other one, which isn't that. But because I've got one dementia, type of dementia, frontotemporal, this one up here, dementia, that's the one I've got. But because I've got that, doesn't immune me from getting Alzheimer's. And it's like I'm more risk of getting Alzheimer's than someone else who hasn't smoked in their past years, because I smoked for about 24, 25 years, quite a lot, from when I was like 12, 13, but don't tell mum. That. And there is also still a classified and dated risk of getting dementia through passive smoking. So if you're in like a room, like I go back to the olden days, a lot of youngsters now don't realise that you could smoke in a cinema, you could smoke on the bus, you could smoke in the back of a taxi, you could, teachers smoked in school, nurses used to go into a little room and smoke after they'd seen their patient and before they saw their next patient, like, stinking and reeking of tobacco smoke. That was the norm. We didn't understand or know that back in the 50s and 60s exactly how bad the effects of it, like, and we're appreciating how bad it was now through all the cancers that's been found, and also a lot of dementias that are coming to light now in people that used to smoke, including myself, like, after I stopped smoking, I was still inhaling smoke through being in places where I was breathing in all the passive smoke. Like, the chemicals are still there, the toxins are still there in the smoke, because passive smoking, you're breathing in the smoke from the cigarette that hasn't gone into the smoker's lungs. You're breathing it instead of him, like, you know, or her, whatever. So that's why passive smoking is just as bad almost as actual smoking. So I used to smoke a packet of cigarettes a day, 20 cigarettes a day, Rothman's king size, Dunhill, those sort of things. Like, so not particularly strong cigarettes, tobacco cigarettes, but still 20 a day. And the reason I gave up was that my partner once came up to me and said, "Oh, we're having a baby," way back, and I was smoking 20 a day, and I just literally that night before seen a documentary where by some scientist or doctor or something, and it explained to the people that if you have a child, baby or a youngster, any child under the age of 9 years old, their skin is actually only a 10% thickness of our adult skin, which means that the nicotine on my hands, had I picked up my baby with my nicotine hands, the nicotine and the toxins and stuff would have gone straight into her blood cells. Like, you know, Holly was my firstborn, like, so after that fact, I thought, crikey, can I submit my children to my smoking ills, if you like, you know. So I just literally gave up. As soon as she told me that, I gave up, and I got all my cigarettes out of the truck and everywhere, and cigarette lighters. I had some nice Zippo lighters, everything, chucked the whole lot in the bin. And from that day to this, I've never, ever, ever smoked. And that was, that was when I was about in my late 20s, I suppose, and I'm nearly 70 now, so you can figure it out. My brain, I can't do those maths anymore, or my subtraction to things. So that is why. So if you've got a baby or a child younger than 9 and you pick it up and you've been smoking, you're better off actually just getting a nicotine patch and sticking it on his arm. That's how bad that's how bad people who smoke interfere with their own children's future health, like, you know. But again, all down to choice, you know. Wear gloves, like, or something. If you're smoking outside and you've got a child, take them off before you pick the child up. Or smoke outside and then put gloves on before you pick the child up. There's all sorts of ways around it, so it doesn't have to be an instant thing like with me, but I'm one of them all or nothing guys, you know. So all I can say is that the earlier you do stop smoking, that starts cutting your risk of getting dementia. Like that day, that moment that you stop, from that moment onwards, no more smoking, like, you know, then your risk of getting dementia because of smoking goes down, 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 all instantly from that second. Like, and it does make a difference, like, you know. After you've stopped smoking for a week, that's a big difference, like, you know. After you stop smoking for a year, massive difference. Like 10 years, huge difference, like, you know, to your odds, like, you know, cuts them in half, like, or something, like, you know. So it's don't smoke if you can. So I earned myself 1 bad point for smoking. So we have to also consider, whilst we're talking about smoking, we also have to just talk about vaping, which is the modern equivalent of smoking. We don't know for certain, 100%, nobody can say that the future people, the people that are vaping at the moment, their future life may not have an increase in developing dementia because of their vaping. We don't know that. That's an unknown thing. And just like I've repeated just earlier about smoking, we didn't know how bad it was. People don't seem to realise how potentially bad vaping could be. It's some of the same chemicals in vaping as there is in just a normal cigarette, like, you know. And although it's like steam and electronics and all sorts of things, there could be something in the batteries or the way that the smoke has been produced and the way it mixes with people who are on medication, not on medication, or have got other issues with their diabetes or cholesterol. Or the interactions are just immeasurable, potentially. So you're, by vaping, you're just adding in another complication to the potential of getting dementia that's already there in your body waiting for you. So again, I don't know. It's all down to choice again, but you have to consider you know, that it might be vaping is just as bad as smoking at some point in the future. 20 years time, somebody might say, oh, by the way, you know, wish we hadn't vaped.